Hi, and welcome to the Scratchzilla curriculum introduction video. In this video, you're probably either one, curious about buying the curriculum, or two, you've already gotten the curriculum and now you're trying to check it out and see what to do next. So let me go ahead and first off introduce myself. My name's Ryan. I'm the person that invented all this stuff. I'm the co-founder of the company called DiscoverTron. I'm a teacher, full-time teacher. This is something I did on the side. A lot of people are probably asking, I get this question all the time, actually they're like, well, why is it so cheap? And if you compare it to other curriculums that come out from other private sector businesses that feed into public schools and homeschools, one of the reasons this is so much less is because, well, I did everything myself and I created everything and I didn't have to pay anybody or incur any debt, and there you have it. So this is something made from the heart. I made it for my students. It all started probably back in 2009 when Scratch first came out. It just slowly evolved until it became something that I decided to go out there and give to other people, because I really wanted to see more students program, just because I think it's a very important skill. And also I wanted to help out other classrooms and schools so that they would have an affordable curriculum that wouldn't break their budget, because I think most of the money should be put back into the school for more, I don't know how to put this, but larger returns on investment, especially investing into teacher training and other things. So that was one of my goals with this curriculum, to influence more students and also to add more value back to the schools. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the curriculum. I just have to warn you, I'm not an artist, but I did make the book cover here. So if you like it, thumbs up. If you don't like it, then we can just blame my friend Sean, who we'll just say he made it, and he's the guy that's responsible for the horrible artwork. Once you download the software after you purchase it through the website, you'll get a zip file like this called Scratchzilla Curriculum. Now it's zipped, and if you've never dealt with zip files before, you can double click on it and you'll notice it'll bring you to the curriculum and you'll be able to access all the different folders. However, I don't recommend you do that. I recommend that you, this is just Windows. Well, Mac people, you have to do it a little bit differently, but you just right click on your curriculum if you're using Windows, and then you choose extract all. Then you find your folder location, and from there you can go ahead and click on extract. And once it extracts, you'll find that it has a central folder. I created a shortcut for mine, but once you get your folder, you should have inside of it 7 different folders. I started with 0. That's why you're probably thinking like, wait a minute, actually hold on, there's not 7. I was counting 0 to 6. So there's going to be a total of 9 different folders, but they increment all the way up to 6. That's because some of these folders are correlated with each other, and so I just labeled them with, say, 2A, 2B, and 2C, so that way you know these are all kind of a block that kind of correlate to one another, so you would use all 3 of these interchangeably. So let's walk through these step by step and check it out. Oh, and just so you're curious, Sean is my best friend. We went to college with each other at North Texas, and we both were in the IT educational sector for a while. We went around teaching companies how to program computers and network computers, so we decided to form this company to do what I was telling you earlier about getting curriculum out to public schools. And so I just didn't want you to think I was randomly picking on a friend and throwing him underneath the bus. And Sean probably is going to be listening to this as well. So first things first, our first folder here, it's called the table of contents. This is just going to be the table of contents straight out of the book. I've taken the book and broke it apart into manageable sections, so that way you can deploy it to all your students. You'll notice here we have a short and long version. These are straight from the book, and you know what, let's go ahead and pull up the short version here in Acrobat. So that's what it would look like inside Acrobat. If you open up the full book, these are all linked to other PDF documents, but I didn't do that with this because if you deploy these PDFs inside a learning management system and you have it linked, it's going to cause errors in the links, because that's not how typical learning management systems work, like Blackboard and Google Classroom. So it's designed just to get it out there as is in a PDF format, so that way you can break it up however your class structure is. So that would be the table of contents, and you can see that just kind of list out all the different units here for you. Let's go back into the folders here. The next folder, Teacher Resources. As a new teacher teaching programming, this is where you're going to want to spend most of your time. These files right here are all instructions just for the teacher. It gives you an overview of Scratchzilla. Let me change this view here so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so that didn't help it out at all. Anyhow, but the word's down here. I hope you can zoom in and see it. So the Scratchzilla overview gives you all the basic information on Scratchzilla. Right here, the lesson cycles. This is a good place to start because, oops, going full screen here. What I've done is I call them lesson cycles, but they're actually 5E lesson plans. And I call them lesson cycles just because you might need to adopt a different set of terminology for your lessons. But if you just want to use it as is, you're more than welcome to. So anyhow, these lesson plans inside here, I'll let you go through and read them some other time. They're all built on the 5E model. They got Bloom's taxonomy associated with it. I've got some different codes here. Just kind of take the time to walk through these things, get familiarized with the different code. And then when you go through each of the different units on these lesson plans, you'll see that I've broken down all the vocabulary terms. I put one key essential question. Then I've kind of put a flow for the 5E model down here on the different items you need to do. Now, this is a lot of information at one point in time, so you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what in the heck, what is all this stuff? Okay, just remember, you'll need to go back and just kind of go through and read this stuff. You can always send me an email. I'll answer any questions I have, and I'll also give you some links to some other follow-up videos. Let's see, back over here, then we have this other file called Value Adding Lesson Activities. These are going to, I'm just going to make it full screen here. These are additional lessons. These are built around the SIOP ESL models. So I use these extensively when I used to teach at a school that had a high population of ESL students, and these are very effective even with programming. And you go through these value added lesson activities and some of the different models right here from the SIOP lesson structures. You'll see that these can apply to your classroom. Now, these aren't all the ESL strategies. These are just some to help you get started, especially if you're new to teaching programming and you just want to see some good ESL strategies that you can incorporate inside your classroom. And as you go through the document, you'll see that I have copies of all the different files, so you can just go through and just print these off whenever you want. So with the curriculum that you bought, you have unlimited printing access. So if you have a school of 50 kids, you can print it off for all 50 kids. If you have a classroom of 25, you can print off for all 25. If you got a school of 3,000 kids, I don't care. Print them all for all 3,000 kids if you got the time to sit in front of a printer. But either way, it's all right there for you. Next, the what, how, and why of Scratch. I'm not going to open this up, but if you're curious about Scratch, why it's important, you've never really messed with Scratch, you just kind of got thrown into programming, go through and read this document right here. And it's going to, it's going to go through and just kind of explain Scratch and give you some of my perspective on how it works and why it's important, and just give you some good information, especially if you're trying to spearhead an operation through your school where you're going to start teaching programming. You don't have complete buy-in from the administration or from the parents. Getting some of this information, it's going to help you out. This last one right here on how to access Scratch, this will go through this. I'll just quickly tell you how to go to the Scratch website and start getting acclimated to the website and to the software. There's two versions of Scratch. You got an online editor and one that you can download, and just kind of go through this document if you've never been to Scratch before, and it should get you up to speed. And most of the stuff that you see in here will hold true for older versions of Scratch, and I've messed around with the new beta versions, and this will work for those as well. So nothing lost here. And let's go on to the next folder. The next folder is 2A Instructional Resources. This will be all of the reading material for each of the different units. Now let's just pick one unit here. Let's say I'm going to go with Unit 7. And we open up Unit 7 here. And in this unit, this will contain all the instructional resources you need. Now again, you have printing rights to this. You can pick and choose the page ranges that you want to print. If you want to print this page out and give it to your students, you're more than welcome to. Okay, just print it out, make a class set, so that way they have paper to read off of. Whatever you want to do, you're more than welcome to do those type of things. If you just want to print off the instructions here on how to program a particular lesson, again, you can just print those off. One point of interest in these instructional resources is that it has all the instructions. Sorry, I'm kind of flipping around here. It's my abstract thinking in motion here. When you go through these, it has all the additional extension activities, such as what we call the creation station. This is where students go through and actually have to use some upper level thinking to apply and actually use some synthesis and evaluation type thinking skills to go through and make something new from what we taught them in the previous lesson. Next, we also have some quizzes inside here. So if you wanted to, you could just print off the quiz and give it to the students. The answer key is in the appendix folder, so I'll show you where that is next. Let's see what else is inside here. In this particular lesson, we move into what we call mini lessons. So there's multiple sections in here. When you look at the lesson plan for this particular document, you'll notice that there's going to be 5 different lesson plans for this one particular learning unit. Some of them only have one just because they're a little bit shorter, and you can take some time and go through and check these out. And at the end of the file or the learning unit, there will be let's get to it here. There'll always be a large assessment for something for like a major grade, like a test, and that'll be at the end. And I've tried to, I need to talk about these. We'll talk about those next. And one thing I've tried to do with the assessments, try to make it some multiple choice, true or false, mix in some fill in the blank, and then have some open-ended questions where they actually have to go through and write out the information. And again, there's an answer key that can help you go through and be able to quickly score the students' responses, and that way you can give them some feedback on how they're doing in the particular learning unit. Let's go back here real quick. So I talked about an extension activity called Creation Station, and these will be in every unit. There's also something called Blog Folio, and the Blog Folio is where the students will go through and do research. They'll do research on companies, they'll do research on individuals that have an impact in science. So there's all sorts of different things they can do on the Blog Folio, and each unit will have maybe 1 or 2 different blog folios that the students will go through, and the goal is to have them actually go out and do some writing and some research and then put it into some sort of portfolio or a blog that they can use to create an anecdotal record of all their learning as they go throughout the particular program. And down at the bottom is a rubric to help them grade themselves and keep an idea on what they need to do to make sure they score high. And you'll notice that the lowest version is a house cat. Sorry if you're a cat lover, but it did make the list, and it works its way up to a bobcat, a lion, and then last but not least the Scratchzilla, which, Scratchzilla is really not a cat, but Scratch does have a cat as a mascot, so that's why I picked Scratchzilla. So it sounded fun and like a great idea when I was doing it. You'll notice I have a dry sense of humor too. Also, right here we have something called an SZ mashup. These are my favorite because I love watching students work on them because it's really, really hard, and I love making them think super hard, and I love just watching them get a super big challenge. So the SZ mashup is you'll give them a SZ mashup, and they'll be forced to have to take different elements of different programs that they've been working on and put them all together to create something new. And the focus on this particular SZ mashup, and they're all different, is that they have to make something from all the programming that they learned in this unit, and they have to make something that's related to science. So tons of imagination. You'll see some awesome things come out of the students. You might have to learn a little bit about programming to kind of keep them moving along, but again, you'll see some fantastic stuff things you can't even imagine will come from these kids. They're fantastic when you give this to them. Imaginations will really, really catch on fire with these particular lessons. Right here, quantitative reasoning. Again, I try to incorporate a little bit of math to get them thinking on a operational logic scale correlated with math and stuff, so that way they get a kind of a holistic approach of what's going on in the computer. And forces them to think about the code, because you'll see some of them slip through the cracks. They can make it work, they can change the variables, but they don't really get the intricate quantitative side of what's taking place. So again, they'll just go through some of these quantitative reasonings, the QR code. I thought it was pretty catchy, and they'll just help them out with that. Let's see, there's another page for that. TeamZilla, these are cool too because it forces them to work as a team. TeamZillas will range from them working on a presentation to put together all the way to them working as a team to go and create a video game together. But it forces teamwork. It also forces them to go out and learn some different things such as digital citizenship, online safety, and a lot of different lessons are incorporated with the TeamZilla. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up what you'll see in each of the different units, more or less. The next folder is the instructional presentation files. These files mirror the 2A folder. And what I mean by that is if you come in here and we looked at Unit 7 in the previous instruction, so we open up Unit 7, what you'll find in this is that it's just a PDF presentation version of the same exact material that you saw that was made for printout. This isn't so much made for printout, whereas the previous document that you saw in the video was made for printing out on 8.5 by 11 paper. Again, print as much as you want. Okay, this one is just a presentation in case you want to walk through the entire student population in your classroom or however you want to do it, so they can get a more of a presentation style deployment of the instructional material. And you can see that this correlates exactly with what you saw previously. It is just laid out differently, so that way it'll show up on a projector, or you can even have them run through a browser if you want to, because this is PDF, which is an ISO 9000 qualified software file type, and they'll be able to just go run through it through the browser and just get a bit more concise instruction without so much reading. I encourage you to use both of them, kind of model for the students as you walk along at the beginning, especially if you have a lot of new students to programming, and then walk through the presentations and then give them the reading material and force them to kind of go through and read it. In the presentations, however, there is a difference. Is the only thing that's inside of these is just the instructional content. You won't find any of the extension activities or exercises or the math or the quizzes or the tests. Those are all only in the regular file that's made for 8.5 by 11 printouts. And just so you know, you don't have to print it out if you don't want to. I usually just deploy the PDF files through my learning management system, and I choose Google Classroom just because I like it. That's what I use. I don't print them out. However, a lot of people do print them out. And people in the past have printed them out extensively because they like to make class copies for their students. All right, let's go to the next folder. We are now in folder 2C, Instructional Resources, Student Files. These files are for the students. You will give these students a copy of the files. Not to say you can't give them everything else. I mean, if it works for you, then it works for me. But let's say we're looking at Unit 7 and we were teaching Unit 7, and here are going to be all the instructional files that they need. You notice these are all Scratch files for this particular lesson. These are the files that the students will need to be able to go through and complete the instructions that were located here inside Unit 7. So if we scroll up, and let's find the first one. There's 7.2. Let's roll with that one. Okay, so we're in mini lesson 7.2. We read, we're having a good time, we're learning so much, like, oh, this is so wonderful. Who wrote all this stuff? I wish I could meet them. Okay, then we get to this section where it's telling us that we're going to start programming. So we're going to look for a file called Moving in a Direction, and let's go ahead and get that file. We go back to our folder here, and let's go to folder 2C with the Instructional Resources, Unit 7, and we're looking for Moving in a Direction, and look, there is the file. It's a Scratch file, and the students will open that up and it will help them complete the program. Okay, so everything is located right there that will help you out with all those instructional lessons. Next is the Appendix. This folder, this is the essentially the appendix of the book. Inside here there's some different pieces of information which I think are pretty important. One is the answer key. You don't want to have to go through and figure out these answers for yourself. I actually had a textbook when I was a math teacher that didn't have an answer key. I don't know, somebody tore it out, so I got to spend all my time coming up with the answer key myself, which made me remember a lot of math. Anyhow, nonetheless, here's the answer key for you for all the different lessons. It even has the math lessons that are associated with the learning units. It has all the test answers. It goes through the complete entire book, so you have all the material and all the answers to all the questions, so you don't have to worry about figuring this stuff out on your own. Now, I will tell you though, however, the rubrics that grade student-created products that involve a lot of creativity, you'll have to use the rubric and use a little bit of your qualitative and quantitative reasoning to kind of determine on how to score the student. It's really hard for me just to create a template on how to grade creativity, because that's very, very hard just to do by itself, even when you know the students very well and have seen them work. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're going to go through and grade the blog folios, the SC mashups, the creation stations, and blog folio. I already said blog folios. The all the other different stuff inside there. Next, the proposed pacing. This one is very important, especially if you're new to teaching programming at your school, or you're starting a course, or you got the curriculum, you're not quite sure how you want to do it and teach with it. Okay, so what I've done inside the student pacing, I've got some different pacing guides. I took the stereotypical 36-week pacing. I give you the units to deploy per each week. I also did a switch on the 36-week pacing, where it's more of an emphasis on project-based learning. So there's a little bit more time spent on creativity, especially when you get to the end units, because these do get very difficult. You'll challenge some of your best students with these. Okay, not to say everyone's going to get challenged equally, but it just gives you an opportunity, so that way if you have some GT students, you can really grab a hold of their imaginations and give them something very, very challenging. Next, we have an 18-week pacing. Some schools have used this as just a semester course, and that's perfectly fine. I'm more preferred to a 36-week course, but I'm a computer science teacher, so this is kind of my thing. So I gave a couple different options here for the 18-week pacing. I'll let you kind of go through those. There's a 6-week pacing. This has been deployed as just a section of a holistic STEAM course. I did this in one of my previous districts, where we just had 6 to 8 weeks just with programming, and other times we were using robotics and just other things out of our CTE center that we were teaching inside those classes. So this is just an example of what you could do for a 6 weeks pacing. And then here, I like this one, is if you want to run this program as an after-school program. Okay, this is perfect because it's easy. You can throw it out there. I have videos that help instruct the students. A lot of self-pacing within these particular programs I made. So that way, if you have a teacher that's going to use it after school, they don't have to be an expert on the subject. You can give them the students the materials, and they can self-pace them. Now, granted, you don't want to just have a complete facilitator type role. You want those teachers to know a little bit about what's going on, but still they don't have to be an expert in the subject to make these things happen. Okay, and that will help you get started. And you'll notice that I break the book down in different sections, and I removed a lot of the extra material that they don't really need to worry about if you're going to run it after school. And that's 2 different pages here for the after school pacing. The last 2 documents will, one, cover the standards alignment. This just kind of gives you an idea of how these lessons correlate with the Computer Science Teachers Association's standards, as well as the ISTE standards. And then there's the glossary, which just has a list of all the major vocabulary terms you'll find throughout the instructional content. And then we have right here in folder number 4, which has a complete copy of the Scratchzilla book, which is what essentially I've been breaking apart and showing you throughout this video series. Is one, this is the complete book copy in PDF format. If you want to give that to your students, you're more than welcome to. I will warn you though, in the complete copy of the book, it does have all the answer keys. So if you give those to your students, they will have all the answer keys. So you have to watch out for that. Right here is an EPUB version of the book. So that way, if you want to have it on Kindle or whatever, you're more than welcome to. But just so you know, the PDF version will run on any sort of Apple product or any Android system. So I prefer to use PDFs for deploying these on some sort of mobile device, just because a PDF is, I think, very, very good, and the PDF version is also printable. Next, we have supplemental lessons and files. These are just some extra lessons I was making up for Scratch. This was going to be a part of volume 2, but I went ahead and just put them in here. I was like, well, let's just give them everything I got, since it seems like a good idea. But these are additional lessons. One is periodic catcher. This is like a little game the students will put together where they're catching a object that's falling from a robot, and it's kind of like just a game that helps them learn about particular subjects, like a review type game, but it also gives you a chance to teach them a kind of a programming template, because I built the instructions where it'll correlate with, if you're doing ELAR or you're teaching math or science, you can pretty much adopt this model of this program to use whatever you want it for. If you want to make a fun, interactive game with the students where they can go through and program some sort of review game. So check that out. It'll give you basic lessons for that. Next are some math model lessons. These again are just starter programs that I put together with the instructions. These are all correlated mainly with math. It just kind of goes through some simple programming instructions to make a software program that lets you go through and check out, how to make a review type program, and kind of like a calculator. So if you're teaching math, you might want to check those out. And then down here, these are just some game models that I've made. I didn't actually put the instructions together, but I put them in here just in case you want to give them to the students, or if you want to, you can break them down and come up with your own instructional files and teach your students how to put these things together. Maybe in the future I'll actually build out full instruction lessons, but I went ahead and gave you a copy of the games here just in case you want to give it to your students, let them check it out as well. And let's see what else we got here. Number 6, non-instructional files. I just put the book covers on here in case you need those for any particular reason. Print them off if you need to put them on some sort of packet because you're showing parents or other teachers or students. And also, I took every single Scratch block in the Scratch program and I've turned them, come on, there you go. They're all PNG files, and I've included every single PNG file that I've made for all the Scratch blocks inside of these folders here. So if you want to start making your own lessons or use these images for any particular reason, they're all right here. Feel free to use them however you want. Now just know that they're owned by MIT, but you pretty much have permission to use them whenever you want, as long as you give MIT credit and you're not claiming them to be your own. So this is all property MIT, but I've cut them up for you so you can use them in your own lessons to use with your students. So that is everything inside the curriculum. I hope you find it useful. I hope you engage your students and they start making some cool stuff and they get excited about programming and they can use these skills to apply to whatever it is that they want to study in the future. Thanks a lot. If you have questions, you can send me an email at ryan@discovertron.com. I'll respond as soon as I can, hopefully in less than 24 hours. No promises, but I'll try my best, and hope you have a great day, and thanks a lot.